Well, everybody, I am making a video today of basically a teardown of my Mojave 4S BLX and also my neighbor's. He's doing it kind of alongside me here, and I thought to go through the car, make a video as if this video is going to Horizon's or maybe ARRMA's engineering team to improve this car. I don't know if it's really going to make it there. I'm not sure if it's going to make a difference, but I thought to try. And worst case scenario, this would be informative to us RC enthusiasts, and you kind of know what to look for and what to do these things. But anyway. Just kind of diving into things here. First thing I want to talk about, the front bumper. This is the front bumper on the Mojave 4S. And if I ever make a reference to something on this truck and I'm like, maybe it's kind of hard to visualize because I have it taken apart, I'll include a screenshot of exactly what part I'm talking about. But I'll do my best. So this is the front bumper. Now I have some of like the absorber thingies taken off of this and whatnot. But there's this piece along the front here. And you can actually see I trimmed it. Might be hard to focus, but yep, I trimmed it. Normally this piece is as long as this piece, and it holds the valance or whatever the heck it's called in the front. Now this is a very interesting part of this car because if we look at the body here, this happens to be my neighbor's. I'll turn it over. This is the front of the body, the front of the car. There's actually this lip in here, and that lip is supposed to go over this guy. What I've found is occasionally the body will skip over it and go towards, the center of the car. And that's a problem because as the body wears in, it's easier and easier for it to skip over that. And when the body skips over it, when you're cornering with the car and it's rolling, it's actually a lot easier for the body to hit the wheels, the stock wheels on this car. So what I did to circumvent that is actually nothing. I trimmed this for a completely separate reason. I was trying to run bigger tires and it didn't work out, so that was a test that failed. But one thing you can try and do, here's a newer body and an older body. You can see I actually trimmed the wheel well a little bit. That's why I had to do is circumvent that issue. Again, as the body wears in a little bit, it becomes a little bit more flexible, which is totally fine. It's easier for it to skip over that. So I don't know what design change needs to happen here. Maybe make this a larger area, something so that the body doesn't hop over that, but just a consideration there. Another thing I want to mention here on the front end, the steering. I want to get into the steering. So basically, here's my neighbor's car here. This is the front knuckle. There are turnbuckles. You see this turnbuckle up here? These turnbuckles are great. I don't think I've broken one per se, but they wear. These ball links right here this is a plastic knuckle with a plastic pivot ball. And what happens is this will wear. This plastic on plastic will wear, and eventually this pivot ball will actually fall out, which isn't a problem. It just has a lot of slop on the car, right? So you'll be going down the road and the car will do a little, I call it the Mojave wiggle. And that's just because there's enough play in here to allow, the knuckle to move. Now, how I fixed this, these turnbuckles are holding up the knuckle. It's also a steering link that goes to the steering block, whatever you call it, pivot block. And then there's also one of these knuckles that hold on the rear. There's a turnbuckle here that holds on the rear knuckle. Now, you can notice that we've upgraded ours to aluminum. So again, all these three locations normally have this plastic turnbuckle. And I upgraded my steering link to aluminum, GPM. I upgraded my rear turnbuckle to aluminum from GPM. You have to be careful. Amazon sells one that has like these weird like silver adjustments on the ends. Those snap off and break easily. They're trash. But I cannot find an aluminum one right here for the top of the front knuckle. And I really wish these were aluminum. Now these GPM ones, just to give you an idea, we've been replacing this turnbuckle all season. I mean, we probably get like 20 packs in, and this thing has to get replaced. This GPM steering link has lasted me all season, and you know what? There's a little bit of play in the pivot ball, but it's not much. I can barely feel it compared to, these plastic ones that just fall out. So I'm not sure, Horizon, if you could some way, somehow make these aluminum or at least offer them as an upgrade, because they are a really, really high wear item, and I really appreciate the opportunity in the aftermarket world right now for this aluminum on aluminum design for all turnbuckles on this truck. So just something to keep in mind there. And it's really not a problem. You can still run the truck. A lot of people actually do. They're just like, you know what, it still works. I'm going to run it that way. I just like my things to be tight. You know, I do a lot of racing with 8-scale buggies, and I just really like everything to feel nice and planted and, you know, driving straight. And I'm coming from the racing side, so that's why I'm going through the whole truck and checking every bearing, right? Now, another thing with the front end here. Yeah, so here's those turnbuckles I was talking about on my truck. The steering is a little loose, again with the Mojave wiggle. So if I look at my steering servo, I upgrade my servo saver here to GPM because the stock one had its own set of issues. So the steering on this truck out of the box with the stock servo. The servo is barely strong enough, but what I actually find is the servo saver is weak. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's say you had this truck on the ground and, you know, it was a stock truck right out of the box. You move the steering wheel, right, on the radio. You move it one way. The servo moves all the way where it's supposed to be. The servo saver absorbs some of where the travel is supposed to be, right? The servo saver thinks it's doing its job because the tires are on a abrasive surface like concrete. But that servo saver is absorbing some of that steering. And unfortunately, because it's being absorbed by the servo saver, it's not actually making it to the knuckle. So what that means is when you're on the workbench here and you're setting your travel limits and the truck is elevated off of the workbench, everything looks fine. But once you actually get it on the ground in dirt and grass and you move your steering wheel, the servo saver absorbs a little bit too much from the steering system. And I've had to upgrade I've upgraded my servo, but the servo saver is really why I had to upgrade because of that issue. And not only that, every servo saver that I've had for this truck, whether it's hot racing, GPM, or even the stock servo saver with the stock servo, it has this wiggle. What you're seeing here is not the servo. That is the servo saver loosening up. Now again, this is a wear item. The servo is not moving here. This is just a wiggle in the servo saver. That is a wear item. Maybe that's expected, but if there's something that Horizon can do, maybe similar to an 8th scale buggy design, right? 8th scale buggies have an adjustable servo saver with a spring, and that would be so awesome to have because I want to eliminate the steering wiggle going down the road. The main reason I'm tearing apart this truck right now is to replace that servo saver and get rid of all these turnbuckles and things that are causing the truck to go down the road a little weird. So yeah, just a thought. Now, another thing I want to talk about, the body. So the body on this truck, oh, by the way, here, that turnbuckle pivot block I was talking about, how the plastic falls right out, this is an example, right? This fell right out of the turnbuckle. I don't know where, one of them. Oh, actually, it came out of the shock. Never mind, but that's what happens. Okay, so the chassis. There are these 4 points on the chassis here. And these 4 points, the idea is at the bottom of this body, there's these 4 block things, and these slide in. Well, what I've observed is, again, after 5 or 10 battery packs, when the body starts to break in a little bit, it's going to be easier and easier for this guy to slide right out of the chassis. And I don't like that because, again, it causes problems with the front where the body's in a weird, awkward position and it's easy for the wheels to hit the body. And it's really frustrating because if I'm jumping this truck, there's like if it's any moderately sized jump, right, where this truck gets 5 feet off the ground, there's like a 50% chance that when the truck lands, even if the truck lands almost perfectly, that those body pins are going to poof, come right out of there. So I've thought about shaving them completely off. I don't know if that's a good idea because of this cage deal. I don't want this cage to roam into a fan on the motor or something like that. So I haven't done that. I did try on one of my previous bodies to drill a hole in here. And remember, when this goes through the chassis, the tip of this is actually going to be on the underside of the chassis in this hole. And I've actually put a body pin through it to keep it in there, but it's really not a great solution. So I don't know what the solution is for the engineering team, but just know that I've had a lot of bad experience with the body slipping out of this hole, and I don't really know how to fix it. I've tried adjusting the on top of the tower here. This is where the body mounts on the top of the truck. I've tried taking out these screws in here and adjusting this because this plastic piece goes up and down. I didn't really help that much, so I don't know. I'm kind of torn. Yeah, now, another thing. The center drive shaft right here has a bearing. Now, this is actually a really strong design. I think ARRMA uses this on several of their trucks. And this is a really solid thing. I really don't think I've had any issues with it, especially after upgrading my ESC and motor. I got, just in case anyone is curious, I have an Easy Run 4278 with a Max 8 Gen 2. It basically bolts right on. I think I have an 18-tooth pinion on it, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, just bolts right on. It's great. Highly recommend it. The stock power on this truck is awesome, but you know, if you're able to spend $300 and get an upgraded motor, upgrade ESC, you're going to have a awesome experience. So anyway, sorry, I got distracted. That being said, I've ran this truck on 4S. I've ran it on 6S. I've changed the pinions. I've upgraded the power system. This plastic drive shaft is honestly fine. I have no intention of upgrading this to aluminum because I actually want this. This hasn't broken yet, and I want this as a weak part on the truck. If I upgrade this to aluminum, I'm losing a weak point in the drivetrain that's easy to access and easy to fix. So I want to keep it there. Now, what I have to say about this, though, there's this bearing here. So this drive shaft sits into the chassis like that, okay? And this is my original chassis. I probably have 100+ packs on this truck. No exaggeration. It just sits in there, okay? And it spins, it spins, it spins. Well, if you lift the truck up off the ground and you give it just a little bit of throttle, you know, 10% on your transmitter, this bearing will actually vibrate like crazy. Do you see the amount of play it has in there? And some of that might be a little exaggerated because, again, I have a lot of battery packs on this truck, and this is a metal bearing on plastic in the chassis, so it might have created a little bit of extra wiggle. But my point stands. I feel like this bearing needs to be fully enclosed in some way. There should be some design here securing this bearing to the body a little bit better, because it just makes outrageous noise when this thing goes ham right in the truck. And you can actually hear it. If you're going through some loose grass or something, you can hear this weird, like, I don't know. I can't imitate the noise, but you can just hear this bearing go nuts. And it's just a little, you know, it's a little loosey-goosey in my opinion, right? I'd rather it be just kind of sturdy in there. But it's a good design. I don't want to harp on it too much. I am going to get a new chassis only because I want to make sure that this bearing sits as tightly as possible in there, and I have a feeling that mine wore a little bit, so I'm replacing the chassis just to hope to tighten that up a little bit. But okay, the design where this gearbox slides in and out here seems to be fine, actually. It does get stuck in there sometimes. I appreciate how easy it is to take everything apart. And I think it's great. It's basically 3 screws and that whole motor assembly slides out. Very cool, very cool. However, grime gets caught in here and it makes it very hard to get it out. I don't think there needs to be a design change for it, just a notable. But you can see that I've had some leaking issues. I've replaced my diffs. I regularly maintain my diffs. I change, you know, the seals in them. I change the fluids often, yada, yada, yada. And this leak, I don't really know where it's coming from. I'm going to replace my center diff and my rear diff just because I'm going through everything. And, you know, I'm going to get a new chassis anyway, so I'm not. But I would really, really, really like the idea of moving to a traditional center diff, rear diff, front diff, like what's in an 8th scale buggy. Right now, this is the front and rear diffs, and the center diff, I apologize, I don't have one that's easy to access, but it's in there. I just think that the differential design is a little different. I want some nicer diffs that are a little bit more consistent, that are, you know, I want them to be 8th scale buggy differentials is basically what I'm saying. I think that's one point that ARRMA Horizon can do to strengthen the powertrain a little bit. It's not mandatory. What's in there is fine, but I have experienced a bit of leaking, and I don't know if it's from the design of the diffs or what, but I just like the idea of a stronger diff. So just a preference there. It's fine as it is, I guess. Now the rear bumper. Here's the rear bumper. This is exactly what the rear bumper design minus the absorber I have taken off here. The absorber appears to be right here. I think this is it. Anyways, there are a couple weak points on this rear bumper that I want to discuss. The first one, and it might actually be here now. This rear bumper is fine. I've had to replace it several times. One, because of this, right? There's these screws on the top, and this part just separates. Is it a really big issue? No, probably not, but it's happened on every single bumper. The first thing to break is this. It's still got strength. The absorbers are still there, so that's the good news, but this keeps separating. So is there a way we can beefen up this design? I don't know. The second thing, where I'm putting my finger and where I'm putting my pinky. These two areas break off. Now, it takes quite a hit for these to break off, but is there any way we can beefen that up? Because the only way that this bumper is connecting to that is through these tiny little things right here, right? And those just look to me like they're just not strong. In fact, they look a little warped. And I've gone through a lot of abuse with this bumper, but again, I've had to replace a lot of these just because of those 2 points. The absorbers are fine. Those are very strong. They're doing their job. The absorbers break, but they're supposed to. But this stuff right here, I really wish that it was just stronger. But it's still a good bumper. Next, let me see what's next. I want to talk about the shocks really quick. So my shocks have always been a little bit, I'm not sure I need to put thicker fluid in them or what, but they've always just kind of sat loose on the truck. And I was wondering why. And I rebuild them, every now and then. In fact, I just get new ones most of the time because they're pretty cheap. But my neighbor got new springs. And this is actually an ARRMA part number. I'll put it up on the screen or in the description if I remember. And just adding these metal springs on here, the shock feels better. The truck rides better with a bigger battery. If you're shoving a 5,000, 8,000 milliamp battery in here, I think my neighbor actually put the 10,000 milliamp battery in here. These shocks just help. And I've noticed that his truck, which is pretty much the same setup as mine, just stiffer springs, it really rides better. It really handles better. It keeps it a little bit more planted in a good way without it bottoming out. So I'll throw up that part number. It's the same part number for all four. And I would recommend from the ARRMA team to maybe look into keeping the truck lifted a bit better, whether that is using these springs or maybe thickening the oil. Not really sure, to be honest, but these springs seem to do the trick. The shocks overall are really good, but of course I would love to have like the 6S shocks factory with the 4S. It's just how much can we ask for $500, right? So notable there. Another thing, the front tires on this truck balloon a lot. I've had to change my diff oils. I've been running, I think, 40K, 100K, 50K, or 30K in the front. Anyways, I would recommend that ARRMA includes a thicker center diff oil from factory. I don't know what it is. It might be like, it feels like a 20K or something. That's way too light, because what happens is, let's be honest. This truck has a wheelie bar. It doesn't get used much, but when it does get used, the front tires balloon like crazy. And I had to thicken up my diff fluids, especially in the center, to help prevent that ballooning. If that front tire is going crazy, spinning quicker in the rear, I want to get a thicker fluid in the middle diff, so that some of that power is actually going to the rear instead and keeping that wheelie truck, going straight down the road. Yeah, just something there. But really, I think that's about it. Oh, another thing that popped into mind here. So the receiver box, you see all those wires in there? We need more room. So there's basically a slot with rubber. It's like a rubber U, right, for all these wires to go up and down the side, right in there. And I upgraded my servo. I did a couple upgrades on this truck. I am finding that there's not enough room for me to get the wires in that slot. I actually had to drill out a little bit more with a Dremel. Now, I appreciate that Horizon Hobby and ARRMA are trying to keep that waterproof, but I would also like it to be easier for me to route my wires in and out of this receiver box. Yeah, just another thought there. Another thing, the front knuckles, this is the front tower. So the front bumper would actually mount off of this tower right here. There's a pin in here. You can see that pin? That pin keeps the bottom of this knuckle on the A-arm. And that pin is held in with this screw. What I've noticed is this set screw, or whatever you want to call this screw, the threads actually loosen a little bit over time, and that screw will just fall out. And what you can see over, let's see, is this mine or yeah, that's okay. So that this is actually the rear. My bad. This is the rear tower. So this is not the front. The rear bumper would mount off of this. But on the front of this car, so let me actually show you the right part for once. Here's the front of the car. You can see the same design on the front knuckle. This screw is constantly, right, it's going down the road like this, and it's constantly going to be hitting stuff. And I think the threads loosen up. This screw will disappear eventually, and you're not going to notice it. And then that little pin is going to fall out. And when that pin falls out, this knuckle is going to be flopping like crazy because it's not held to the bottom of this A-arm. So I'm not sure, my recommendation would be move this screw to the other side. Move it to this side if possible, so that way this does not get exposed to everything that the truck hits and all the dirt and all the trees and all that, because it's just kind of annoying for that to fall out and get all that abuse. So just a thought, but the design is fine. Oh yeah, another thing, sorry, just kind of throwing stuff in this video. The sway bars. Here's the front sway bar. Here's the rear sway bar. What I've found is these sway bars, they go into a plastic pivot thing, right? All this is plastic here except for the screws. What I've found is this sway bar does not stay inside of here. When I took apart this car, this sway bar just fell out. And what I've also found is this set screw, this is a plastic thing with a metal set screw. This is not enough to keep the sway bar in place. I wish there was a better system to keep the sway bar in, because the sway bar just falls out. It's not unheard of for me to, 5 battery packs are put through the truck after I've just completely gone through it, and I look at this and the sway bar fell out, and I'm threading a metal screw into plastic. The plastic threads are not holding, and this sway bar just basically stays right out of there. It's not even functional. So just another thought there. Maybe there's a way to improve that design to keep the sway bar tight, locked in for the long term. But yeah, I think that's about it. I think I'm done now. I really hope that you guys found this video informative. I hope that I was able to give some hints and tips for those of you that already have this truck. I also hope that Horizon Hobby takes some of this feedback, improve the truck for the future. Hopefully something happens there. Did I miss something? Please leave it down below. Please give me a like, a comment, subscribe. Really appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.